Oh, hi team. You know, there's only one thing I enjoy more than plastering, and that's painting. 2 thin coats, just like the master Duncan Rhodes advises. And using my Winsor & Newton Series 7 number 1 brush, the whole task is just that little bit easier. I'm never going to graduate from Duncan Rhodes Painting Academy. Let's go chat about wargaming. Hi team, and welcome back to Wargaming Chat with me, Brian Smith. Astro Boy Cup, $2. Yes, there's a story behind that. But anyway, I have some brief admin. I forgot to mention in my return video that I'd like to really thank my 2 new subscribers. And they are View1 and Todd, because it was funny enough, notice this came up, and you don't pay attention to this after years. It was about the same time I may have mentioned my workmate said I hadn't done any videos for a while, and I got a new subscriber, and I went, oh my God, people are still watching those videos? And I thought, I felt really guilty. And then I got another subscriber 2 days ago, and went, oh my God, I'm so guilty, I'm glad I've actually got my return video underway. And so I thought, let's keep the ball rolling. So while I've got a day off work, let's do some more. And that was really good. Also, in the last few years, with COVID and everything, I've been very fortunate enough to have discovered a wargaming magazine that's right up my alley. Wargames, Soldiers and Strategy. Some of you may know it, but I find that its content is exactly the sort of thing aimed at a wargamer of my particular age and mindset. And even the advertisements in there are interesting, but I've really enjoyed that, having looked at Wargames Illustrated and many other wargames over the years, and having collected White Dwarf magazine for decades, many years ago in my youth. I find Wargames, Soldiers and Strategy and the podcast are really interesting if you're a wargamer of that particular age. So I really recommend, if you haven't had a look at it, check that out. Oh, and Wargame Soldiers and Strategy also have some fantastic painting tutorials. Kirsty's done that for many years. She hasn't done them for years now, but she's got dozens there, and it's really good painting advice. But meanwhile, let's kick on.
It's chat time!
All right. Now, what I was thinking about chatting about today was painting. Now, painting can be very intimidating to some people, and I thought I might just have a bit of a chat about all the aspects of painting. So, yeah, let's get into that. I can edit that bit out. So, painting. I mean, I don't know if you paint miniatures yourself, or whether you paint tanks or paint scenery, but a lot of videos you'll see on YouTube channels, you'll see a young master painter who's perfectly nice and gives great tutorials, and you'll see behind them a wall of hundreds and hundreds of paints, and I go, oh my God, do they use all of them? And half the time I think it's just a poster. But that can be intimidating. But realistically, do you want to know how many paints I've used for the last decade? Yeah, about that many. And that's twice as many as I need. But getting all artsy, you've got your primary colours, red, blue, yellow, and then your tones, black and white, and you can theoretically make any colour you like out of those. Well, much the same with wargaming paints. I just try to have a good range of primary colours. I can mix a lot of colours, but you'll find with a lot of these paints, it's not like, the visible spectrum. You quite often can't get the right tone of dark if you just add a bit of black to it. You can't get the right tone of light if you add white to it. You'll find they'll go a little bit pastel or grey. So to expand my scope outside of what I mix, I always get a few specific colours, whether it might be a bright orange or yellow, or a bright blue, or maybe a darker blue, or a particular shade of a maroon. Yeah, just to suit whatever I'm painting at that time. And another thing to consider is artists' acrylics. Being isolated and rural, I've found at times I've run out of paints and I've gone, oh, what to do? It'll take me 2 weeks to get them in the mail and I'm 3 hours from a city. And so I raid the craft cupboard and find artists' acrylics my wife will have had for various art projects. And the thing is, artists' acrylics, good quality ones, are perfectly fine to paint your miniatures with, I've found. It's all about the pigment content. And when they're all water-based, it's not that much different from your modelling paint. Now, the trick is, for anything you're going to paint, especially plastics or metals, is priming them. Now, you can spray them, as I've done with a metal primer, or you can spray them with a plastic primer. But you'll find with wargaming, excuse me, I'm being very rude. Get your old bottle of surface primer like that. That's all you need. Because what is the job of a primer? Well, firstly, you get your miniature, you give it a wash in warm soapy water to get all the release agents off it. Same with 3D printed, give them a bit of a light wash, rinse them in clean water, and then let them dry completely. Now, applying a primer, it's good practice. You may not really consider it necessary, but it's good practice. I've found that if you do apply a primer, whether it's by spray or by brush, the whole job of that is to make the next layer of paint adhere. So no matter what paint you use on top of a primer, it's very likely going to stick well. So whether you're using house paint or poster paint, if you've got a primer on there, it'll most likely stick to it really well indeed. And when you finish, if you apply a matte resin gloss varnish, matte varnish, that'll lock it in. Now, in my last video, you would have seen my Star Wars miniatures I've left in the garden for a couple of years. Now, as an experiment, I intentionally painted them with the cheapest, nastiest craft paints my work would provide. And then I just put 2 coats of exterior varnish on them. And they work just fine because it's all about the priming. Clean your miniature, prime it, and then you can paint it with whatever you like. But most importantly, put a varnish over it because your cheaper paints may tend to unstick. But look, experiment and find out what works for you. I've just found that at a pinch, I've been perfectly happy to use artists' acrylics. And the good quality ones will sometimes have colours, especially the metallics, that are a finer pigment grade than you will get in your miniature paints. Like for example, Game Colour. What's this one? Brassy Brass. Look, it's a good colour. I'm happy with it, but you can see the particles in it. You'll see in some metallic paints the actual particles in the suspension solution. And no, that doesn't look great. Like for example, the best gold paint I ever used was the enamel. It was to me a gold leaf. Still the best gold paint because it's such a smooth finish. No, you can't see the particles. To me, a gold leaf is brilliant. But now I've gone all water-based acrylics. I've been using this Montmartre. They're metallic acrylics. I find their metallic acrylics give you a really, really fine finish. You can get brighter silvers in some of the other brands like Vallejo and that sort of thing. But look, at a pinch, don't completely discount your cheap shop artists' acrylics. Get the good ones and they should be just fine for your miniature painting.
It's chat time.
Now, some of you may have noticed my t-shirt. Yes, that's Jonathan Quayle Higgins from the series Magnum PI, my favourite TV show of all time from the 80s, and just one of many of my new range of t-shirts I've acquired over the last few years. Now, on the subject of painting, I've noticed in a lot of shows these days, I've discovered there are now actual paint shakers on the market. People actually have machines to shake their paint, which I must admit is good. I never knew such things existed until about 2 weeks ago. And my wrists get sore. And I thought, What can I do about this? That's a good idea. Well, a couple of years ago, I got a gift from work, and it's a massager. And I've never really used it too much, because you try to get your kids to massage your bloody legs or your back. No, they just won't. And I couldn't be bothered. But this thing here has got several knobs that go on it. And this is a little black knob that I just put a rubber band on. And I thought I can sit some paint between them. There's a rubber band. And presto, I've got a paint shaker. Yes, doesn't that give you ideas, team? But I'll tell you what, 30 seconds in that and my paint's all shaken up beautifully. It's just amazing. Just a rechargeable bloody massager. It's cost me nothing. And boy, does it do a great job of shaking paint. Brilliant. And I've also noticed since the last video, so many people on YouTube invest all your master painters into wet palettes and things like this. And I'm thinking, oh look, I've tried them, it doesn't really work. But what do I do? Because the concept's fine, but honestly, I don't sit at my desk all day painting. It's when I have the spare time, so things dry out. All I do is I've got my usual little palette. I get a paper towel, moisten that, and I can put some baking paper on top, but most of the time I just use the paper towel, and that works fine. However, over a long period of time, the paper towel will start to deteriorate and release fibres. So just be aware of that. But a paper towel, yeah, that just keeps things moist for a few minutes. Even newspaper, that's a favourite of mine as well. Just a bit of newspaper in there, that keeps things moist and it doesn't disintegrate like paper towels. But honestly, you don't have to go to town. Just make your own wet palette for what you're doing to your own level. None of us are going to be sitting around as we're professional painters. So just a little plate, make it work. And if you have a dry palette, honestly, get a piece of core flute. You don't need a very big piece. This is an old real estate sign. And I can find if I just want something to be fairly runny for my two thin coats, yeah, just a piece of core flute is a perfect surface for me to play with. That or a ceramic tile, I've got one of them too, but you know, they can be a bit dangerous when you drop them, as I want to do. But core flute, scrap core flute. Now, paint jobs. Are you concerned about how bad your paint job looks? Don't care. Don't care. If you invest too much time and care into worrying about what other people think of your paint job, you're not going to paint. I've been painting since what? The 70s as a small child, but honestly, I've never really got into painting since, when I was in the army. It was just something you could do for a break on weekends, just sit there and listen to your music and just paint 1/72 miniatures. And certainly in the last decade, when you see the standard has gone so high. I mean, who ever heard of dry brushing in the 70s? We just paint everything one colour like an early Disney cartoon and bang, done. Shading, wow, that looks great. We didn't do shading, we just slapped the paint on and away we went. And that was how it was for decades. But now the bar has been raised so high, everyone's a bit intimidated about painting. Oh no. Well, I've got a friend who's older than me and he's been painting longer than me. And honestly, I can see why he likes the shading paints, the contrast paints. He generally just blocks in the primary colours, contrast, highlights, done. And like me, his eyesight's not the best as we get older, but on the tabletop at 6 feet, his armies look splendid, whether they're Napoleonic or World War II, they look good. And he just does whole armies because let's face it, most of us are not going to win a Golden Demon Award and most of us don't really care. All we need to do with our paint jobs is to make sure that we're happy with the way they look at arm's distance, our friends think they're nice, And let's face it, how many of you have friends in wargaming actually paint miniatures? I've got friends in wargaming who've never painted miniatures. Honestly, they love wargaming. We have a great time. But, you know, I'm the terrain and painting guy. My other friend, he does a lot of painting, lots more than me. And I've got other friends who, you know, they might make the odd tree or a bit of terrain. But honestly, do you have many friends out there who don't actually paint miniatures? It's up to you and other people. And that's just fine. We all bring something to the party, and I enjoy painting. It's very therapeutic. It takes my mind off bad things. And yeah, and now I've got kids. They really like them. If only I could get them off devices and onto tabletops. But that's something to work on. Now, what I'm going to do is show you bit by bit how I'm painting a miniature. Just a standard miniature for wargaming. I'm just going to show you how I just paint one of my standard little guys for wargaming. Can you see that all right? That's just one of my 7 Years War French guys. I haven't done the base yet. I'll do them all later in the week. And I thought, look, I'm no master painter, but my little guys look pretty good on the table. So I'll give you a quick rundown of how I do it. So sit back, grab a cup of tea, and let me bless you with the majesty of my unprofessional opinions. So let's get into it. Okay, well, my miniature's been washed and primed, and I've just started to apply the black. And I've just got some more black on there and a few of the nooks and crannies. Now I've just started to do his beigey trousers and a bit of khaki. Now I've done the main dominant colour, which is an off-white for his coat underneath. Just get that on all the white areas there. Do a blue contrast paint that I can highlight later for the blue parts, his cuffs and waistcoat and his collar. And there is flesh, just a medium flesh tone, because when I do a contour wash later, that'll darken it down nicely. But yeah, already starting to look more human, and that's about the standard what I've done him to in the 70s. There we go, I've done a bit of a brass gorget there around his neck and some of the other parts. Undercoat before I do the gold, trim on his hat and that sort of thing, before I highlight that later. Looking splendid. But that's not all. Now I've gone along and I've done his wig, I've done his cockade, I've done some of the white around the trims of his boots there. We're nearly at the stage of doing a contour wash. Bang, we've done now. He looks all dark. I think I've just used Agrak's Earthshade there into all the nooks and crannies. Don't let it pull too strongly towards the bottom of any of the folds. But yeah, that's made him look a bit better. Now it's on to highlighting. And there we are. Got the highlighting done there. He's pretty much okay for the tabletop now. That hasn't taken too long at all. Just a little bit of nitpicking here and there on a few more buttons. And a little bit more of a delicate highlight with gold around the buttons and trims. Bit more highlighted flesh on his nose, and we're away. Looking good. And here are the paints I used. Some of them were only a tiny smidgen, but this is pretty much all of the paints I used while I was painting. There you go, team.
It's chat time.
Now, one final thing I'd like to just chat about, and it's very important because I found over the last 10 years I'm tending to scrutinise miniatures more, because you'll find some look really good when you paint them, some don't. I found that some metallics just aren't as well sculpted as some as the plastics you get, and certainly the resin 3D printed ones we're getting now are looking fantastic. They're just mind-blowing, some of them. And on that subject, when I looked into the cost of getting a box of, say, Warlord Games 7 Years War French or British Infantry, I could only get them in metal, and they were like $100 Australian a box without even looking into postage. That's outrageous. And so I hunted around, I even looked on Etsy, and what did I find? I find these little chaps, my 3D printed 7 Years War French Infantry, which were exactly what I wanted. And for a bit of a plug, I got these from Senor Philippe. He's at 3D Maddox Design. Pardon me while I refer to my notes. No. Yeah, Senor Philippe in Mexico City. He's at Madox 3D Design. MADOX 3D Design, one word. And they were $63 Australian with $15.89 delivery. And just for fun, I got 2 sets and I got a free commander thrown in. Hooray! And so basically, look, yeah, they're not cheap, but are you finding miniatures are getting ridiculously expensive now? And if you don't live in the UK, apart from North Star, which has always been my number one place to buy miniatures from, especially metal ones, they've got a great range of, Dark Age and Pulp. I like the Pulp miniatures there. Their postage is reasonable, but so many places the postage is just outrageous.
Outrageous!
And I'm just not buying things from them anymore because it's just, I can do better elsewhere. So I think that's the thing. I believe your paint job is only going to be as good as the sculpt you're painting. Is that obvious? Am I just, telling you how to suck eggs? Well, that's just it. If you're going to paint a miniature, a well-sculpted miniature will still look good no matter how average your paint job. And a badly sculpted miniature, you're going to be struggling the whole way no matter how good you are at painting. You'll have to use every trick in the book. And most of us don't have many tricks. We've just got bad eyesight, cabbagey fingers, and we just want to get the paint on and just put the contour paint on and highlight it and get it on the table. So, sculpts. That was it. That was my 5 cents worth opinion about sculpting and painting in miniatures. So, let's get on. Let's continue with whatever I was babbling on about.
It's chat time!
What are you doing?
Chatting, you see, we chat there. Okay. All right, well that about wraps it up for this episode of Wargaming Chat. And I couldn't really do anything without little chap Philip here wanted to be involved. So here's Philip. He's a bit bigger than the last time I nursed him. He now weighs 20 kilos. Yeah, as much as a bag of premixed cement. So next time I think we might have a chat about, I don't know, I'll be basing my miniatures, so why don't we have a word about making your own flock and scenery. And I might show you my unboxing of diorama press-a-pay products my wife got me as a surprise for Christmas. Yes, diorama press-a-pay in Italy. Oh, it's just great. I can't wait to show you that. So, right, well, that's all for this episode, and we'll see you next time. Say bye, Philip.
Bye!
See you then.
You can copy you.